we are going to be working on going through Mishnah Brachot 4.1, Perek Dalet Mishnah Aleph. Okay. Now, the first line, Tfilat HaShachar Ad Chatzot, Rabbi Yehuda Omer Ad Arba Sha'ot. And we know that this is one unit for two reasons. First of all, Rabbi Yehuda's statement by itself wouldn't make any sense until because we don't know what we're talking about. But secondly, the second line starts Tfilat HaMincha Ad HaErev. So we can figure out that there's, from the parallel structure, that if part one starts Tfilat HaShachar, and then part two starts Tfilat HaMincha, and so on and so forth. In order to understand each of these lines, we do need to fill in a little bit of information. Tfilat HaShachar until Chatzot noon, which we noted is, if we're counting a 12-hour day starting at sunrise, noon is therefore 6 hours. Tfilat HaShachar until noon means Tfilat HaShachar can be said on any time until noon. Rabbi Yehuda then comes to disagree. He says it can only be said until 4 hours, not 6. He has an earlier end time. What this means is that there is a majority opinion that is said anonymously without a name, and then the Mishnah records the dissenting opinion of one of the Tanaim. We will talk as we go along about why it does that. For now, just know that there's a majority opinion and one specific named Tana who disagrees. The same thing with the second line, Tfilat HaMincha Ad HaErev. Mincha can be said, filling in, until the evening. And Rabbi Yehuda says Ad Plag HaMincha. Again, he is disagreeing specifically about Mincha. He says Mincha can be said until this time about an hour and a quarter before the end of the day, before sunset. So a first anonymous opinion we call the Tana Kama, which just literally means the first Tana, because it doesn't have a name, but is usually assumed to be the main or majority opinion. So the Tana Kama's view, the morning tefillah can be said until noon or 6 hours. Rabbi Yehuda says until 4 hours. And then the afternoon tefillah, Tfilat Mincha, can be said until evening. And Rabbi Yehuda says until Plag HaMincha, which I just translated here as mid-afternoon. I gave you the more precise definition on the sheet. Now we're going to skip over number 3 for a minute to look at number 4, Veshel Musafin. In our text, it has it all as one word, but either way, shel is of, and musafin, we recognize the word musaf. This one looks a little different because it is the prayer of the musaf. The musaf was really the name of a sacrifice, as we will see soon. So the prayer of the musaf sacrifices, but the prayer of musaf, kol hayom, all day. Not kol yom, every day, but kol hayom. Really important to differentiate between those two. Kol yom, every day, each day. Kol hayom, all day. Now, that is, why does this say all day and not just an end time? Well, because presumably you can say at any time from sunrise to sunset, as opposed to mincha, which while you can say it until sunset, you can't actually start saying it until afternoon. Again, Rabbi Yehuda Omer Ad Sheva Sha'ot. Rabbi Yehuda has in this case a much earlier end time, since the end of the day, sunset would be 12 hours. Rabbi Yehuda's time of 7 hours is much earlier. And so now we have done 3 of the 4 lines, and they look almost identical. Tfilat Shachar ad Chatzot, Tfilat Mincha ad Erev, Shal Musafin Kol Hayom, each with a descent and an earlier time from Rabbi Yehuda. So what about this one? Tfilat ha'erev ein la keva. So this one looks different. How? Well, for one, obviously, there's no machloket. Rabbi Yehuda does not appear here. Secondly, ein la keva. It's not fixed. So we kind of assume that that's talking about times, but it's not so clear. It certainly isn't specifying times the way that the other lines in the Mishnah have. So why does it talk about Tfilat Erev in this more vague language? And is that connected to the fact that Rabbi Yehuda does not have have a different position on it? And together, what is that saying about Tfilat Erev? Is Tfilat Erev somehow fundamentally, qualitatively different than the other three tefillot?